faith in God.
Oh, yeah.
Isaac blessed these boys. He blessed these boys because he knew that the God of heaven would perform the words or the pronouncement he was granting unto them. So he did it by faith.
That's right.
Wouldn't be alive to see it come to pass. But he knew based on his past that God's word is true. Here is a point we need to consider as we look at Isaac blessing his sons concerning things to come. And that is, my brothers and sisters, even as we grow in faith ourselves, we must realize that what God has done for us in the past is evidence of what he can do in our future. Reason why Isaac was confident in pronouncing a blessing upon these boys that he knew God would bring to pass because he himself was a child of promise. Isaac's dad had to wait 25 years for him, but God didn't let him die. Isaac's daddy's faith was tested when God informed him, give him back to me in the form of a burnt offering. And God never let him die. Having encountered these things with God, Isaac knew that God's faithfulness in the past is evidence of his faithfulness in the future. If God kept his promise to Abraham, then surely he would keep his promise unto Isaac. And if God kept his promise unto Isaac, then surely he would keep his promise unto Jacob and Esau. What we're saying this morning is that God's faithfulness to his word in the past is God's evidence of faithfulness in your future. Therefore, Isaac was able to bless his sons concerning things that would come their way. He had the bona fide assurance that the God I've seen move in the past is the same God to which I'm committing my sons for the future. Here we are, Narrow Lane Road, standing right here at the pinnacle of the break of 2012. It's the same God that led us over the tragedies of 2011. It's the same God that will lead us through the adventures of 2012. The same God that dried your tears last January will be the same God that will dry your tears this January. The same God who soothed your sorrows last October will be the same God who will soothe your sorrows come this October. It doesn't matter what you face that's coming up. It doesn't matter what the new year has to bring. We know that things are not going to always be what we want them to be, but God's record is sure, and our faith has to be firm. There is a beauty in trusting in God's ability to do anything but fail. Isaac had that type of assurance in God. He knew that what God had done in the past would allow him to rest easy in death, because God will take care of my boys. That's the reason why the Hebrew writer went on to encourage the children of God in chapter 13 and beginning at verse number 5, when he said, let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as you have. We have said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. So they may boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear what man shall do unto me. That's why Paul could write in Philippians chapter 4 and beginning in verse number 13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me the strength. And again in verse number 19, Paul echoes the sentiment that my God shall supply all of your need according to his riches and glory. It's the same type of faith that made Peter write in 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse number 12, for the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open unto their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. It's the same faith that made Paul write in Romans chapter 8 and verse number 28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. My brothers and sisters, as children of God, we have promised provisions from God. We have a promise that God will take care of us. That's what the exhortation was in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 6, when Jesus said, if God feeds the birds, aren't you worth more than any bird? If God clothed the grass of the field, aren't you worth more than grass which is here today and cut down tomorrow? We have promised provisions as children of God, and what we need to understand is that there is a beauty in just being blessed. Sometimes we get so caught up in what we don't have that we forget to count the blessings that we do have. I mean, there is a blessing in just being able to get up in the morning and dress yourself, to be able to put one foot in front of the other and make a decision as to which dress you're going to put on and which suit you're going to be suited with. It's a blessing just to be able to go outside and have a car to crank up. It might not be the car you want, but just thank God that you got one that caught this morning and allowed you to get to the service. You may have to have wondered somewhere during the journey whether or not you would make it, but you made it. And you ought to thank God that you made it. We ought to be thankful for the fact that we have children nonetheless. Sometimes they're hard-headed. Sometimes they just won't do what we want them to do. Sometimes it seems like the more we talk, the less they listen, but at least we've been blessed to have them. And if we just do like Isaac did, we ought to know that everything is going to be all right. Just sit the children down and put your hands on their head, close your eyes and ask God to lead them, ask God to guide them, ask God to keep them in your dying hour, because God's faithfulness in the past is evidence of what he can do in the future. If we have the faith that Isaac had, we will depend upon God for things that we cannot see. In this entire series, we've looked at people who moved because God said move. We've looked at people who taught because God said talk. We've looked at people who worked because God said work. In this particular business of faith, it's really all about God. And the beauty of being blessed is knowing that what God is giving me because of my faith is what God will continue to give me if I keep my faith. It's not that God gets somewhere down the line and decides he's not going to bless you. Many times we remove ourselves from the pathway of being blessed. If the same blessings we started off with, we want to continue with, then we've got to continue like we started. If we somewhere down the journey decide to make a detour, then we remove ourselves from the pathway of being blessed. And when you remove yourself from the pathway of being blessed, that's when you start to doubt God. God doesn't move. We move. That's right. God doesn't leave us. We leave him. And what we need to understand is that we want 2012 to be better than 2011. We've got to be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, or as much as I'll know that my labor will never be in vain in the Lord. Isaac blessed these boys with the assurance that God will perform the things that he's asking. How many of us know this morning there's a beauty in what God has already done? There's a beauty in what God has already let me see. There has been a beauty in the trials I've already had. There has been a beauty in the struggles I've already seen, because I'm still here. Hello in here. He tried, but I'm